they have to learn and they have to be willing to learn. It separates good agencies from not so good ones.
SEO is an important part of the journey. It's definitely not the whole journey. How do I know when I get to product market fit? It's like falling in love. You can't really say, how do I know? You know.
Hi everyone, hi Michal, and it's me, Anna, and this is a brand new episode of Operation Automation. And today we're talking about my favorite topic, which is in-house content production versus agency outsourcing. Fortunately, I don't have too much experience with agency outsourcing, but Michal, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do have some experience working with, I guess, multiple freelancers and multiple agencies. Ups and downs, I guess, in all situations, both also with in-house marketers. But yeah, generally, I do like to use freelancers and agencies in our work.
Do you have a preference versus like freelancers or agencies, one or another?
That's a tricky one. Yeah, like ideally, you would have always in-house content marketers that have full knowledge about your product, about what you do. So you don't need to explain everything to them. At the same time, if you're entering new spaces, for example, with GetResponse, an email marketing software that was entering website building at some point. What do we know about website building? Suddenly, your in-house content marketing team needs to learn about website development and the trends in there, etc. It's very challenging to do that in-house. So agencies, for example, or freelancers in this kind of projects can help a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But you see, an important bit you've mentioned here is they have to learn and they have to be willing to learn. And I think this is sort of a stepping stone that separates good agencies from not so good ones. What else do you think is important for quality agency to really put out some good results out there?
Yeah, I think this is something that we learned the hard way, that when you have an agency that just accepts any kind of work without giving you feedback on it or asking multiple questions about it, then you might end up in a situation where you're not happy with the results, but they're not necessarily at fault. Because, for example, you ask them to produce too much product-focused content that they have no knowledge about, or they're not industry experts, so they're just touching the surface. They're able to produce content, but only at the top of the funnel, I would say, not somewhere middle or bottom of the funnel. They're great at, or agencies I've worked with are great at producing articles for super high volume keywords that attract a lot of traffic, but not necessarily about topics where you need to show your expertise. And maybe this is, my fault here as well, that I haven't provided enough information on how to provide substance into those articles.
Well, I think as client, you usually try to cooperate with the agency to get some workload off your shoulders. So you expect to do less, and sometimes creating a really detailed brief or an outline can be even more demanding than just writing the piece yourself. So you have to sort of find this balance always.
That's actually right. With some agencies, the process is super simple, that they just, schedule the content once a month and send it back to you at the end of the month, and you agree on the topics and you don't need to do anything else. But others, they require that you jump on a call every single week and you discuss different things. And if you're a small in-house team, you don't usually have as much time to align on these things. So I suppose it's all about setting the expectations, both from the agency side and the client side. What do you want to do? How much capacity you have for these things? Because any project can fail or any project can win, depending on both sides of both stakeholders understanding each other, what they require from each other.
I could not agree more. And we've actually already briefly touched upon the point between in-house versus freelancers versus agencies in one of our previous episodes from the previous sprint, which will be linked in the show notes down below. But in the meantime, today we're joined by George Cassiotis from Minuttia, an SEO agency. And hopefully George is going to share some great tips on how to make this cooperation between the agency and all the stakeholders as fruitful as possible. Hope you enjoy the listen.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Irek.
Hi.
We usually started in the following way. George, if you could just briefly tell our listeners about yourself and the agency you represent.
Sure. So my name is George Cassiotis. I'm the managing director at Minuttia. We are an organic growth acceleration agency for B2B SaaS companies. We help these companies accelerate organic growth through data-driven content marketing and SEO. We've been around since 2020, early 2020. In January, if I remember correctly, we launched the agency. And it's been a good 2.5, almost 3 years of growing and trying interesting things for our clients and getting trusted by bigger and bigger companies, and also growing the team since we are 12 people right now. Yeah, that's a quick overview, I guess.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Anna, I know that you have this question.
Yeah, I do. So before we jump into the main topic that I'm sure is going to be very interesting to all our users, question that's very interesting to me is, George, what is one thing in life you wish you could automate?
I would like to, since I'm a new father, I have a newborn at home. I would like to automate, I guess, getting the stroller like moving so that my son sleeps more easily. That would be of help to me, especially during the night when he wakes up. So yeah, I think that would be helpful to automate somehow.
Cool. I like how people always want to automate parenting. That's a popular one we
Yeah, no, not parenting, but because it's a great thing, it's actually the best thing. But kind of when you're tired and you haven't gotten enough sleep and you just, you can't like stand anymore, it would be nice to have some sort of automation. And this is actually something I was discussing with my wife the other day. Like, could we? It would be nice to automate this when he starts, kind of like when he wakes up at night, to have a way of like moving the stroller so that he can get back to sleep. But yeah, we haven't found a way yet.
yet. That's the attitude.
Okay, so if because basically we will focus on content, SEO content, and especially in this software as a like SaaS industry. So I wanted to start with this basic question, like what is it like to be a B2B SaaS agency right now? So what are the most common challenges your customers face, and what is it like to actually run this sort of business?
That's a good question. I would say that what we see now from an agency standpoint, from a business standpoint, is that the space gets very cluttered, very saturated. Just by conducting a simple search on LinkedIn, you will see that there are many service providers, like agencies, like freelancers, like consultants, whatever, who try to get in this space. And it makes sense why. I mean, SaaS is booming, it's growing, and it doesn't seem that it's going to stop. This is going to stop anytime soon. So it makes sense that more and more people get into the game, which kind of, you could say, makes things a bit more difficult from a business standpoint, differentiation standpoint. Like, how do you actually position yourself in a way that's evident that these are the differences between you and all these different providers? I would say that we are fortunate enough um, to be in the position that people can really understand what the differences between us and other providers are. But if we want to talk about like doing the work for SaaS companies, B2B SaaS companies specifically, I would say it's pretty much the same, meaning that every other category is pretty saturated right now. More and more companies get into the game, and it's pretty difficult for SaaS companies as well to stand out and make a difference. And the same applies when it comes to content, the same applies when it comes to organic search, product, because guess what? Companies can, even if you have a feature nowadays that's like innovative or whatever, most likely they will copy you, and most likely they will do it better than you. especially if they have deep pockets, if they are VC backed or something like that. So it's really difficult for these companies to stand out and make a difference. And obviously this makes acquisition more difficult. And I mention and I focus on acquisition because this is where we mostly come in. I mean, there are other things such as retention that is extremely important, but for the most part this is like kind of handled by in-house teams. So it's getting more difficult. It's definitely getting more expensive. CACs, customer acquisition costs, are on the rise. And so I guess that our work here is to kind of come as a trusted partner, as a partner that our clients can trust and like work with and see potential for the long run, and help them find solutions, and answers when there are no easy answers because of the reasons I just mentioned. Things are getting in general more competitive, more difficult. Companies, especially VC backed ones, are more aggressive, and they can be more aggressive as long as they have runway in the bank, of course. And so we come in as a partner, as I mentioned, as a trusted partner, to help these companies actually find solutions. And people think that agency client relationship can work only in cases where you don't have expertise and internal team to run things, and that's not true. We Most of the clients we work with, exactly because they are very big companies, have teams in house, and so still they need someone like us to come and, for example, help them scale up content production, or help them launch a new section on the website, or help them understand what's going on with their blog and why the blog is underperforming. This is why we are here, and this is how I would like us to be perceived, let's say, from the industry. And as I mentioned, I really feel that the role of the agency and service providers in general becomes increasingly important for the SaaS industry, just because things become more difficult. It's really very difficult and very competitive in most categories. Unless you created a product such a I don't know, such as an AI solution that's like the way people search about this product hasn't been developed yet from an organic standpoint, in which case what you may need is, I don't know, do something else like sales, for example, and not so much what we do. But for all the other cases of SaaS companies competing against like other companies in already established categories, I would say that things are getting more and more difficult. And obviously, content and SEO is a way to stand out, make a difference, reduce your customer acquisition costs, and acquire customers that have a good LTV for your company, lifetime value, and so on and so forth.
And I know that there is a common thing for companies now to be on the fence as to, is it really worth it to invest in the agency, or would it be better to have an in-house content slash SEO person, or two different people for that matter? I do have like a negative experience with working with an agency. So I'm sure a lot of people do because that's what usually pops up in the industry. But could you maybe bring up some pros into what agencies, if everything is done correctly, bring to the table?
I would say that's a great question and a great topic of discussion. I would say that many people have a negative experience working with agencies. I have negative experience working with agencies as well. And I mean, it's not just that, but uh, I will tell you, I will share something personal. I was at SaaStock. I don't know when this episode will go live, but I was at SaaStock last week, and I had a great time, and I had a talk there. I finished with my talk. I connected with people. We went out for dinners. We had long walks. We discussed. We brainstormed and so on and so forth. Not even for a second, it passed through my mind to like connect with prospects, go to companies that I know have raised money to sell them, and so on and so forth. Not even for a second. And like, it's not that we haven't made an investment to go there. Like everything from airline tickets to whatever, you pay money to be there, just to be there. So naturally I would have to think about what's the ROI of all these things. But guess what? I haven't. And I never think about the ROI of things. But at the same time, I was there not trying to sell. Unavoidably, I know that sales will come out of all these things, but especially when you're not trying to sell. But there were agencies that were trying to sell, and they were very hard on trying to sell. So how do we expect then, as agency owners, as people in this industry, to not have a bad name when we are so kind of try to force things, let's say, and try to just sell people without caring actually about, do they really need us? Do they can they afford the investment, or it's something beyond their powers right now? And at the same time, at the end, like for me, it's extremely important to make the relationship and maintain and build relationships rather than just make the sale, because I know further down the road, it's relationships that bring growth and all these beautiful things that we all crave for. So I would say that and many of the clients that work with us or have talked with us or engaged with us in one way or another, they had a negative experience with agencies. Okay, but at the same time, I think that there are ways to make the agency client relationship work. Okay, first of all, I think that the model of the retainer, especially for SEO agencies, is dying. The reason why it's dying is because in many cases, I have conversations with friends, with people, with clients, whatever, and they are like, we used to pay, or we pay this agency X amount of dollars every month, this retainer fee. And at the end of the month, I'm not really sure what I got from them. And let's be honest, especially when it comes to SEO, many of the things that you do or you want to pretend that you're doing are things that you will do in the beginning of the engagement. Okay, so you front load the work and then you just send an invoice at the end of the month, pretending that you did some work this month, which is simply not true. Okay, obviously this doesn't apply to every case, but it applies to many cases. And this is something that we understood, and we stopped doing retainers, and all we do is engagements based on very specific deliverables, so that at the end of the month, the client will never question the engagement in the sense of what did these guys do for us this month? No, you know exactly what we did because we delivered it, and because this is what you paid us for. Okay, and this is why you work with us. So I think that the typical retainer model is dying. I think that where agencies can come really in handy is when there is a very specific, and this is also on the client as well, to kind of establish from the very beginning, there has to be a very specific scope. What are we trying to achieve here? With very specific things that we are going to do, very specific deliverables. Okay, if you tie all the goals that you have to very specific deliverables, and you kind of structure the engagement in such a way that at the end of the month or at the end of the project, no one is going to wonder what we did here. I think that this kind of helps you not get into difficult conversations moving forward. So very specific scope, very specific deliverables. And I would say that, expertise as well is where agencies come in handy. This is one of the reasons why, clients come to us, even though, as I mentioned, in many cases, they have very big content and SEO teams, very big. Okay. I will give you an example from one of our existing clients. They came to us because they were interested in learning more about our content creation service. And as I was asking questions, I realized that essentially there was just, this is a Series A company, and there was just one person in the company doing content marketing, working with different vendors, freelancers, doing some content themselves, and so on. But for the most part, the bulk of the work was on that person, to handle all this, content operation, which we all know that it's, there are so many things to do when it comes to content. Okay, content briefing, content ideation, keyword research, everything, editing the content, whatever. And I was like, so you do all these things by yourself? Well, guess what? With an engagement with us, with very specific deliverables on a monthly basis, we will take all this work from you and we will do it and you will just be involved in 2 steps of the process. How does that sound? Okay. So for that person, I guess that it was easy to make the decision and say that, you know what? Yeah, because it really doesn't worth my time. And considering all the other things that I'm paying for, it seems that this is a no-brainer for me. I will, choose your solution. But I would say to your point, Anna, to your question, companies really have to do the math and say, okay, what would we pay if we had someone in house? What are we paying now? With all the people that we have involved in this process, or with all the other vendors and stuff that we outsource some of these processes, and try to understand whether or not it makes sense financially for them to move forward, if that makes sense.
Well, I kind of agree with you, but not entirely, because, and in many ways, this is what I try to convey with my question, is that many agencies' image is compromised from the start nowadays, because the quality agencies deliver is often much lower than an in-house specialist would deliver. So it's not just a matter of whether or not it's worth the costs compared to the time you would spend on the project, but if the end result we would get is actually what we needed. And it's not just about the deliverables, it's also about the perception, the ethics of it, because as far as I understand, the agencies are allowed to work with several clients from the same branch. So how can I, as a business owner, can be certain that you're not working with my competitors building similar strategy for similar keywords?
That's a very good point. I would say to like it, you kind of touch on many things here. I would say to your first point that quality is definitely an issue. And let's take one service, because the other ones are really straightforward. Like there is no opinion there when it comes to content audit, or when it comes to like keyword research and stuff. It's pretty straightforward, that or strategy, like you get value from there. But let's take something that has opinions, such as content. Okay, and many people have different opinions as to what like content quality means, if this is a piece of content that is of high quality, and so on. I will tell you what we do. It's not, right or wrong, but this is how we try to kind of control things and protect both ourselves and our clients. When clients come to us, and in many cases they have very complex products, we are not talking about one use case here, like it's pretty straightforward and so on. We are talking about different use cases, different products, different audiences, and so on. And they come to us and they ask us to do content that's kind of more product focused, like for example, how to do X using our product. Usually this is not something that we will touch. We will advise against working with us for that piece of content. Not that we don't get into like the very specifics of the product and understand the product, and take screenshots and make product walkthroughs and so on. But what I'm trying to say is that we evaluate each situation differently. And if we see that, this is like, it would be better if this was written not even from a con marketeer, like from a product person inside your team, if that makes sense. Because it's not just like taking some screenshots from the product. This requires actual like knowledge of the product, or from a very technical standpoint. We will direct them somewhere else. Okay, we will let them know that this is not something that we can do. Could we take this work? Yeah, definitely. But there are high chances that the client wouldn't be satisfied, and we wouldn't feel confident about our work. I don't know if that answers your first point. I hope it does.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Well, this is a challenge that I think that most of people have been struggling with, that how to actually make sure that you can use the help of an agency, because as you said, it's like, there are so many opportunities that you can actually simplify the process. You basically can help in so many different ways, but then you can also use the in-house experts and create this sort of like, relationship that allows you to create the best possible outcome. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any like let's say proven methods? So for all of the listeners who do have, let's say, a content marketing specialist in-house or SEO specialist, how to make sure, or how to spot an agency that can actually understand the fact that you do have an expert within the company, and expand on that, and actually, bring something more to the table, and basically scale the operations of the team, or maybe even the one person that you have in-house.
I would say, since we are talking about SaaS companies, one of the first things that companies can do to ensure that the outcome of a project or the deliverables that they will receive will be as close as possible to what they perceive as high quality or a successful outcome. You have to really try to communicate as many things as possible to the agency, to the freelancer, to whomever you are working with. Meaning that if we are talking about content, for example, give them access to your editorial calendar guidelines. Sorry, your brand guidelines. Make sure that they have a like demo of the product from a product expert, and that you record that, and that the team will have access to it afterwards. Make sure that they have a demo account also, in order to make these experiment and try to learn the tool themselves. And in general, try to, I would say, this is a mindset thing and not so much like tactical or whatever. And it may not have as much practical value, but it's extremely important when you get in an engagement like this to not have the mindset of us vs they, because at the end of the day, if this relationship works, and I can assure you that this is exactly how it is, like our clients, in many cases we are talking about very big companies, but it's just one person who is the point of contact. So we are partners. Either if that person may not perceive things that way, we are a team. And if this relationship works, well, guess what? You will be able to get credit from your company, and you will get more buy-in for us to do more interesting things together in the future. So as a general mindset kind of approach, I would say approach the relationship as not a us vs they kind of like engagement. It's not like that. It's a teamwork, and in order for this to work, you need to start the relationship like this. But that aside, on a very practical level, as I mentioned, try to convey, try to communicate as many things as possible about the product. Try to document things and share these things with your agency. In the beginning of the relationship, try to have as short feedback loops as possible, and you can control that, for example, by having bi-weekly catch-ups, and having an open communication through email or Slack or whatever medium works for you. And yeah, I think that it's not just what the agency will do to set themselves up for success, but what the company will do to ensure that the agency will perform. Okay, because many people think that what, no, they know their stuff, they know what they are doing, let them do their work. That may be true when there is no opinion involved in the content. For example, I don't know, a technical audit or something. That's pretty straightforward. But when there is opinion, especially content creation is a great example. I would say do whatever it takes to set both yourself and the other party for success.
Cool. I really like the idea of actually working as a team, not necessarily our team and their team, and then actually look for those misalignment or those areas that we where we actually have different opinions, but actually to try to bring it all together, right?
Yeah, and also let me just say one more thing. Speaking of quality that you mentioned earlier, Anna, which is a very sensitive topic. Like, we are an agency, and if I would like to say, I would come here and say only great things about how we do things and stuff. But I can assure you, we had engagements, and this applies especially with bigger companies, because they have very strong convictions about how things should be done and very strong opinions. We had engagements where in the beginning it was like, we were shocked by the feedback that we had received. Like, is it possible that things are really so bad? But we, exactly because we are very open to feedback, and this is exactly what we want, like bold feedback. Don't leave anything tell us everything. The beginning of the relationship was, a bit shocking for us, like, oh, like this is not going to work. But because we were open to feedback, then like after we finish the first project or whatever, well, guess what? The client wants to work with us because not only we improved based on their feedback, but because they've also invested significant time into, training us, into communicating all these things for us, creating documents for us, and so on and so forth. So after a certain point, if there is goodwill and everyone have a positive attitude, I would say that everyone is more invested in this whole relationship and they want to make it work. Okay, and the beginning may be difficult, but if you are not in a us vs they mood and mindset, it can definitely work.
No, I think this is a really good approach. So yeah, I think it does answer my question in terms of how it is actually possible to work with agencies without compromising the quality or without making your in-house team feel like they are being consulted. So those are some of the issues I've had personally, and it's amazing that you are recognizing them and addressing them as Minuttia and as a managing director of the agency.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we it's extremely important that, I mean, I value relationships more than anything else, and I think that at the end of the day, if you see that a relationship can't work for any of the two sides, you can the best thing to do is just get out of this relationship. But many times things can be solved just by like maintaining an open dialogue, just by doing some very like sorting the feedback loops and doing some very basic things to protect both yourself and the other party. But a thing that I think very often nowadays is, I try to think like our clients may feel, because it's difficult for them as well. Like think of a very big company that kind of gets you, and kind of like the person who is going to get you in the company, they kind of vouch for you. And this is something very important. Like, I mean, if things don't work out, they may have a problem, their position may be compromised. And this is not something I take lightly, especially nowadays, and especially with the companies we are working with. So we are getting into new engagements with the attitude of, you know what, many things can go wrong, we know that, we have seen that, but we are going to make it work, and we are going to make it work for this person who trusted us, and who, after the end of the engagement or the project, we wouldn't want this person to feel this was a terrible mistake. Why did I choose to work with these guys and didn't choose like to hire someone in house? Okay, so but it's a mindset game, I would say, as it is a practical and tactical one.
I wanted to ask about deliverables that you said, but before we do that, actually, I wanted to ask this very basic question: like, what is the role of SEO in this, like, SaaS business strategy? Because I feel that very often, we tend to use jargon, so we say SEO, and then everybody has their own vision of it, like point of view on that. So what is your take on it? What is the role of SEO in a SaaS business strategy?
For most categories out there, it plays a very significant role, and you can see that through, just take a look at the SERPs for any given term. That's a term that like indicates a use case for a SaaS company. Email marketing software, okay, marketing automation software. Take a look at the SERP. You will definitely see SaaS companies that compete on that SERP, but especially increasingly nowadays, you will also see review sites like G2, Capterra, GetUp, and so on and so forth. You will also see affiliate sites that quote unquote steal that traffic and sell it back to you. What I'm trying to say is that you will not see just SaaS companies that want to think that there is something going on there. People are searching for these terms, and so we have to be there. Since there are whole businesses like review sites that, this is like their business model, this is where they kind of base their whole existence. This shows us that, there are people most likely who search for these terms, and not only search for these terms and visit those websites and just pick a service and that's all. But also they evaluate different services, they compare this service to another service, and so on and so forth. This shows us that SEO is a part of the customer lifecycle journey. Now, the problem is that in many cases, companies think that SEO, it's not just, a part of the customer journey, is the customer journey. And that's what they do is that like they will create content for a search audience. People refer to this as SEO content. I don't necessarily subscribe to that term, but whatever. And so they will think that this is the end all be all to my, I don't know, content marketing problems, problems, product problems, sales problems, whatever. Okay. Which is not true. It's simply not true. SEO is just a part of the customer lifecycle journey. Now, if you want to nail SEO, I would say that, and especially nowadays, that you have to accept the fact that there is no, in most cases, there is no single touch point, meaning that it's unlikely that people will just conduct a search, will find your website. They've never heard of you before. They've never seen your brand, your colors. They never attended any of your webinars, any interactions with your brand whatsoever. And they will say, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I trust these people with my credit card. I will start paying for this product. And that's it. We would love things to be as simple as straightforward. Unfortunately, they are. This is why, once again, SEO is a very important part of the customer lifecycle journey. It's not the only part. Okay. So you need to have presence in it. You need to be there for all the different terms and on all the different stages that a person may be, because obviously, the term that I mentioned earlier, like marketing automation software, for example, this is a term with commercial intent, okay? And so it indicates that the person who conducts this search is kind of commercially investigating a solution that can help them automate specific marketing activities in their company. But there are like many other terms that you need to be present for. For example, what is marketing automation? Marketing automation tips, marketing automation strategy, and so on and so forth. So you need to be present for all or as many of these terms as possible. But once again, you can like base your whole your business's existence purely just on SEO. And another reason, just to bring some perspective into this discussion, if you do that, and as long as it works, that's great. But imagine if a company is like 100% reliant on SEO for their growth, okay? And there is a Google algorithm update, and guess what? Your website is hit. Well, this is when things get ugly, and I have seen that, by the way, with companies that came to us after something like that. And what can you tell to them? I mean, you have to diversify. It can't be just SEO. SEO is just one part of the customer lifecycle journey. And also, even if let's forget this scenario for a minute, you need to have various touch points. I mean, for us as an agency, people rarely come to us and they are like, we conducted a search, we found your website, we came and we thought this is the best partner for us, we want to work with them. What usually happens is that we saw a webinar that you did with X, we read your blog post when you talked about Y, then we also saw another person talk about you in a community, and then only then we came to your website to send a form request and request an intro call or whatever. This is the same thing with the same applies to SaaS companies. So SEO is an important part of the journey. It's definitely not the whole journey.
And also now it just might bring us back to deliverables. So actually, what should you go after? If you are like a small SaaS company, and now when you actually understand that SEO is not going to be the only strategy where you actually, you can't build, or you can't actually look at SEO as the whole customer journey, as you said. So what can you expect? What should you expect? What should you actually go after? When you cooperate with an agency. So what are the main goals for the start?
That's a great question, and many things to discuss here. First of all, and you may be surprised, like an agency owner giving this answer, but if your company is a pre-product market fit company, our general advice, unless I don't know, you have raised a lot of money and can actually make the investment, or unless I don't know, like generally as a general comment, I would say if you're pre-product market fit, our general advice is don't invest in SEO. Only when you get to product market fit, which means that, a question could be here, like, how do I know? And I liked a very nice analogy slash metaphor that Emmett Sear from Twitch did when he was asked this question, like, how do I know when I get to product market fit? And he answered, it's like falling in love. You can't really say, how do I know? You know these things. You know when you are in love. So I would say, when you have reached the product market fit. And when you have reached the product market fit, and you know what are the best use cases, the use cases that your customers get the most value out of, the best use cases for you from an LTV standpoint, when you know all these very basic things, and you are not based on assumptions, but you have data to kind of inform your strategy moving forward, then it's a good time to say, okay, now we can start investing in SEO. Okay, content is another thing. You should do content before you launch your product. Okay, content is another story, but SEO specifically as a channel, as an acquisition channel, I would say after you find a product market fit. Now the question is, okay, we are a product market fit company, a company that has found a product market fit. What can we do when it comes to content? And we are an early stage company. I'm not going to discuss later stage companies. What can we do, and what should we focus on? I would say that in general, and this is a very simplistic, let's say, approach and like way of perceiving things, but based on our experience, it's not like technical SEO or anything like that will move the needle. It's rarely technical SEO unless something is broken, and unless we are talking about very big websites with complex architectures and so on and so forth. So it's two things actually. It all boils down to obviously very good strategy, like keyword research, all these things. Having these things nailed and checked, I would say it all boils down to content and links. So the more content and high quality content, and the faster you can publish, which is also known as publishing velocity, your publishing velocity, and obviously content that's tightly connected to the topics that you want to develop topical authority on, and so on. I'm just oversimplifying things because I've talked so much about these things online. People can find what other things are involved, but it's content, great content, consistently out there, and so on and so forth, and then links. Okay, because links, it's kind of a vouch of like trust from other websites to your website, and either we regardless if we like it or not, they still work. I mean, it works as an accelerator for getting organic traffic. But I would say that content and links cannot and will never solve your, as I mentioned previously, like product issues, sales issues, customer support issues. If you have issues like that, and these issues are so like prominent that kind of overshadow everything else that you do, you shouldn't expect that content SEO, content and links alone will solve all my other problems. Okay, they can work especially links, they can work as an accelerator. Once again, they cannot kind of help you alleviate any other problems that you may have.
Thank you so much for this perspective. The topic is also really personally interesting to me because I work with content directly. SEO is like one of those parts that I try to stay away from as much as possible. Like I'm using Surfer SEO so that most of the work is done for me. And if I were so lucky to find an agency that cares for our successes and metrics, I would gladly hop on it, but not yet. So I now have a series of questions that were prepared by some of our listeners, and some people we know about very hardcore SEO approach. So it's more of the practical side of things. How would you feel about that?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, number one, and these are like blocked questions. So, one is, how would you approach an SEO content strategy if you were a small SaaS business with, let's say, you only have about 100 pages on your website?
That's a good question. I would say that's the best answer I can give right now. You
Yeah, of
should,
course, you're totally
yeah,
unprepared.
yeah, you should watch our webinar, the webinar we did with ClearScope, which is one of the tools that we use when it comes to content creation. It's the topical authority one, how to build topical authority. I think this is the one, right? Watch it. It gives exactly the answer that you're looking for. It breaks down everything, and it even like towards the end of the presentation, I also give access to specific templates that you can use to like form your strategy and start working on it. I think that's all you need to get started for a small website.
Cool. Feel free to send it to me, and I'll make sure to include it in the show notes so that everybody can follow the webinar and the materials that you have related to it, because people love this kind of things. And then, so would there be a very big difference between this approach you would take for a small business versus a well-established SaaS with hundreds, thousands of blog posts and all have individual pages, all have a high domain authority, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, because in the first case, let's assume that you don't have any like like your organic footprint is generally small, and you haven't done so many things, and you don't have visibility for so many keywords, and you don't get as many clicks and so on. So what you need there is kind of develop these things, like start creating new content so that you get visibility for new terms, so that you get clicks for these terms, and so on and so forth. While for a website that's already established, and this a very important point here is that this doesn't always have to do with how established the business is, because there are, I know, like very big companies that don't have an established website, if that makes sense, and they are very big companies. Like they make a lot of money, they have many employees, they are very popular, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that their website is established, if that makes sense. But for bigger websites, the needs are generally different. They may be occasionally interested in like getting visibility for like new terms and so on. For example, maybe they are interested in building a new feature and they want to get visibility for this feature and associated keywords. But I would say that for established websites, you need to care about, for example, content like updating, or conducting regular content audits to make sure that you maintain what you already have built, and so on and so forth. So I would say that in general, how established a website is affects the things that you need to do, and the activities that you need to invest time and energy and money on.
Thank you. And how about the funnel talks? As a marketer, I gotta mention funnel on the podcast at least once. So, when would you go for high difficulty keywords for bottom of the funnel versus easier top and middle of the funnel types of content keywords rankings?
That's a good question, and I would say that the answer heavily depends on what the business goals are. And I will give you an example. Just before this recording, this podcast recording, I was on a call with one of our existing clients. They are extremely successful when it comes to content and SEO. Actually, they are killing it. Okay. And I was presenting to them, and we were discussing, the topic of this call was a glossary that we could create for the website. Now, a glossary, if you think about it, is not something that will generate revenue. So if your goal is, like, we need to generate revenue, we need to get leads, we need to generate revenue because this is what is important to us right now, then what you need, or what you don't need, is a glossary. Okay. But if you have the revenue solved, which for many businesses, we always want more, obviously, but let's say that you have this solved, and what you are interested in is increasing your share of voice, getting more visibility on the SERPs, and also creating a defensible, having a more defensible strategy when it comes to protecting your rankings for topics that are important to you, then a glossary makes sense. Okay, that's
I
one
mean,
case.
I love glossaries. This creating glossaries is one of my favorite content projects. So I think everybody can only benefit from a glossary. It is an amazing traffic driver from the SEO standpoint. It's just a pleasant project from the content writing perspective. Clients love it.
I agree. We have done it as well, and it's really fun actually. But to your question, it really depends on what your goals are. If you are a business and your goals are, what, we need to increase the number of demo requests or signups to our website in the next couple of quarters, then obviously I wouldn't go with a glossary. I would go with something more bottom of the funnel, like alternative pages or VS pages, or more, let's say, these pages still have commercial intent but not as strong, such as best online course platforms, for example. Okay, so it really depends on what your goals are. The good thing is that when it comes to SaaS companies, the customer life cycle journey, for which we talked earlier, is pretty straightforward. And so I would say that what your goals are, this is what will give you the answer of what you need to create or what you need to create more, and so on.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. I have one more question left, and that one is from me, just popped into my head a second ago. So feel free to tell me that it doesn't make any sense. Um, you work mainly with SaaS projects, and there is a very big difference between SaaS and software development, obviously. But first of all, would you be willing to work with a software development company for a change? And if so, what would be the difference you take? Because both things are technical, both things rely on development a lot. Both things may even be B2B. But at the same time, I think there is this huge question of the purchase investment the clients would have.
Well, the answer here is that we have worked with software development companies in the past. So we have, it's something that we have done. It actually, we have a published case study as well on our website about that. And I would say that for these companies, which was kind of eye-opening for me as well, the investment in content SEO simply makes sense. Why? Because the LTVs are usually very high. I mean, no one is going to go to a software development company and they are going to spend, I don't know, $500 for the service. This is not how things work. So we are talking about like significant investments. So the LTV unavoidably is extremely high, which of course allows you to invest more, if you are wise and you want your business to be sustainable and grow, to invest more in content SEO. So I would say that it definitely makes sense, and we have done it, and like we will do it again in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I basically run out of questions here because this is a long topic and I can go for another hour, but just to keep it in line today, I think we're good. Is there anything else you would like to add from yourself about whatever?
So if people want to get in touch, the best way to do so is through LinkedIn. You can find me, I think it's George Cassiotis. I'm not managing the account, but if you send me a message, I will most likely learn about it. And even if it take me a while, I will get back to you. If you want to learn more about Minuttia, you can visit our website, minuttia.com, double T. Feel free to check out our blog and everything that we do there. And also, if you want to, if you are in the SaaS industry and are interested in like expanding, let's say, your knowledge around all things content marketing and SEO, you can feel free to check out our YouTube channel, where we publish the video version of every episode of our podcast, which is the SaaS SEO Show. And check us out in all major platforms, podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and so on and so forth. that's all. It was a very insightful, I would say, discussion. Thank you very much. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll make sure to include links to everything in the show notes so that it'd be easier for our listeners to find you. Thank you so much.
And that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm curious now, what do you think about this? What's your preferred model? Do you like to work with agencies or perhaps freelancers? Or do you like to build in-house teams? Do let us know via email at podcast@getresponse.com.
And if you want to listen for more episodes, make sure to check out one with Jacob from Scribe. That's be linked. And you can find more of us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for some more automation magic. Don't forget that you can claim up to 40% discount on all GetResponse plans if you plan it correctly by using the promo code GR-podcast. And stay tuned for future episodes. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Operation Automation is backed up by GetResponse, the marketing automation platform that's been on the market for over 20 years. Subscribe for more juicy insights. And remember, automate, don't complicate.